What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another movie review. I'm Chase Lee, and the movie I want to take a look at right now is Them That Follow. Now, this one comes from 1091 Media. It is directed by Britt Poulton and Dan Madison Savage, and this one stars Alice Englert as a woman that lives in this kind of like deep-seated community in the woods where they're very religious. It's a very close-knit community. There's very little people that live there, but her dad is a pastor played by Walton Goggins, and this is the type of church that if you commit a sin or if you need to be cleansed, they put deadly snakes around you, and if the snake bites you, then you need to restore your faith. You need to ask God for forgiveness and healing, and then the snake bite will mysteriously go away. Yeah, as it always does. And so they play with snakes and that kind of fate with the people in that church, and it's really dangerous and it's deep in the woods, so not a lot of people know about it. And and so there's a secret that Alice, her character, kind of holds. She doesn't tell anyone. She doesn't tell her dad or the nun or her friends. And her dad's also trying to set her up with a gentleman to marry her. Very fixed marriage situation. While she still tries to communicate with Thomas Mann's character, they kind of have a thing going on and stuff, but they're still keeping that secret tight-lipped because that's what this movie's crutch is for an hour and 40 minutes. And so, and Olivia Coleman's also in this. She plays the main nun. Jim Gaffigan is her husband. This movie's got a stacked cast. And so, going into this, I saw the trailer, and I thought the movie looked interesting, but I wasn't fully on board with it. I think the one thing that really compelled me to watch it was this stacked cast. I mean, this is an interesting mix. And so I was like, Olivia Coleman just won her Oscar. Jim Gaffigan, cool. Walton Goggins is one of my favorites. And then Thomas Mann's cool. I've never really seen Alice Englert. Caitlin Dever, I always forget how to pronounce that. She's in this, and she's had a great year so far with like Booksmart. What could go wrong? I saw the movie, and it's pretty much my exact same thoughts on what I felt about the trailer. It's neutral. This is a fine movie. It's not a good movie. It's not a bad movie. It's just literally down the middle for me. And let me try to explain myself. So, as I stated before, this movie relies on this secret as a crutch for an hour and 40 minutes until the climax at the very end, when people start finding out about the secret, and all this stuff is kind of going on around these characters. I don't mind movies like that. I really don't, because that sets up the stage for great tension, great play between the characters, and keeping the secret hidden. Who knows the secret? Who is she going to tell? Who is she keeping it from? A lot of intrigue and mystery that could be played with this story, especially when you're having this religion, kind of poisoning itself throughout the story as well with its dangerous methods. That sounds like a fascinating story. But the problem is, I don't think Poulton or Savage, I don't think they take it there. I don't think they take it to a point where, like, I was like, wow, that's some elevated storytelling. It's like they set up the premise. Okay, we're flatlining like a heart monitor. Oh, it's kind of wiggling a little bit. There's some excitement, and we're just back to kind of like just straight down the middle. It's just, they don't ever explore this idea enough for me to justify watching again or getting its hidden meanings. It's like, I got everything I got, and you can be entertained by this, and that's fine. I felt like the movie was propping itself for more than it was, and it just never delivered. It's just kind of like it just stayed neutral the entire time and just kept that nice kind of steady ride throughout the film. I even thought all the performances were just fine. I don't think anyone like stood out where I was like, oh wow, that was like the game-changing performance. I think the only one that was actually like really good is Walton Goggins, and he makes a great pastor. He kind of takes his devilish character from like Vice Principals and take that character, go start a community in the woods, and there you are, there's your pastor. But he's threatening, he's intimidating. but you can also tell he cares for his daughter. There's some complexity there with his character and how he's written. I didn't mind his performance so much. Everyone else was just fine, like kind of going through the motions. It's like when you know about this secret and you realize this story is not really going anywhere and exploring anything, it gets kind of repetitive. It gets kind of boring. And even for the hour and 40-minute runtime, I think it's actually kind of perfect for this type of situation, but it felt longer than it should, which is not a good thing. And also, it has a terrible setup to the movie. It starts out with the main character doing dishes, and she's thinking about her and Thomas Mann's character. Then it cuts to her going to a gas station to get something. And I'm not going to spoil it just in case if you want to watch it, but it sets up the entire movie with the secret. Okay, and so when you have that kind of really abrasiveness and just kind of jumping into the story like that, we don't really connect with these people that much. And that's kind of another problem that's a little rocky throughout the entire movie, is that no one ever fully connects with their relationships, whether it be her and her dad, her and her lover, her and her fixed marriage husband, her and the nun and her husband, the nun and her son. It's just no one ever felt to me like they were in these relationships, and just kind of they're standing there saying their lines and calling it a day. Not saying they're bad performances, they're tolerable. And that's not what you want out of your movie. You want these actors to convince you that these things are happening. Like I said, Walton Goggins was the only thing that felt convincing. He was this pastor that was doing these really dangerous things to his community. And even diving into that a little bit with the religious stuff, they don't explore it that much. It's just like they have one scene where the cops were called on, but you don't see any cops. They just say it, and then they just move on. It's like, if that's going to be kind of your parallel storyline to the daughter and her secret, you need to have them like kind of... They definitely come together towards the climax at the very end, but even with the excitement of the climax, it's like you were just so neutral up until that point that it really didn't even matter. And on top of all that, I didn't really like the ending. The ending just kind of just ends. And I don't mind abrupt endings and just cutting straight to the credits, because there could be some hidden meaning behind the hard cut or what the character is doing. But the way it ends, it's like you leave it up to the viewer to decide what the fate of one of the characters is. That's not enough for me. And a lot of people are going to see this movie and come back with, oh, well, this happened because she was trying to escape the religious, grips that her community have. Like, she was trying to free herself. I get that. It's not enough for me. And then it just ends, and you're like, well, okay, like that was kind of my response after it ended. I was like, okay, that was fine. It's a serviceable movie, but I don't know if that's more offensive than saying it's a bad movie or a great movie. It's just like, it's fine. But I will say that it sets up interesting ideas. I love anything that delves into like religion or like stuff that is masked as a religion, but it's ultimately like a cult, and they're doing some really dangerous things. I like that stuff. It is prime source material for like a really great suspenseful thriller. Well, granted, this one's a little quieter than like a suspenseful thriller. It's not as fast, not as upbeat. It takes its time, and I didn't mind that, because they were trying to let these characters be fleshed out and grow in these relationships, but I already didn't feel that. So now you're just taking your sweet time to the climax, which was a jolt of energy for sure. But by that point, I was already tapped out in my mind. It didn't really convince me to like the movie. I was just like, okay, the climax was worth it, but everything else before that was just doing that good old flatline and never did anything to go beyond it, and just kind of stayed neutral throughout its entire viewing. So not a bad experience, not a great experience. I'm going to give them Them That Follow a C. It's right down the middle for me, but maybe you have something different on the movie. Maybe you thought about it differently. I want to know all your thoughts down below and let me know what you thought of Them That Follow. So that will do it for this review, guys. I'm Chase Lee, and tune in next time for whatever I review next. I will see you guys later.